Um, then by 1903, my great-grandparents, Louis Cass Mincher and his wife Eva Bailey, relocated to Monmouth. That would have been the fourth group of my family to arrive in Monmouth. My grandmother was actually born in Iowa, something my mother didn't even know. Her mother was born in Iowa until I started looking into the family history. And she married Frederick in 1922, Frederick Hoy, and they had a son and a daughter. Daughter, of course, being my mother. And then on my father's side, they were the last ones to get here. My father was born in Rossville, Illinois, which is down near Danville in Vermilion County. His parents came from quite different backgrounds. My grandfather, Sam Clark, was born in Kentucky, with his family having been in Kentucky and Virginia since the 1600s. But my grandmother, born Alberta Richards, her family background was that of Pennsylvania Quakers that came across through Ohio and settled in Wayne County, Illinois in 1838. They purchased public lands down there, and that land had been in the Richards family until the last descendant died off last year. They married in Vermilion County, and because of the Depression, started drifting across Illinois looking for work. My grandfather had done some baking in Danville, Illinois, and got a job here at Strand's Bakery. My grandmother, meantime, went to beauty school in Galesburg and worked for a number of salons, and eventually they packed up and went to Kansas, leaving my father behind. And they didn't stay in Kansas long. They turned around and went back to Ohio and spent most of their life in Ohio. Then my mother and father were married in 1952 and had 5 children. So I'm married now, and my wife's family's been here. First group of her family came in the 1850s. That would have been the Miner family, settled near Cameron. But they weren't the first of the family to settle in Warren County. Erastus Miner received a land grant for his services in the War of 1812 and settled in Warren County long before it was Warren County in 1818. And they were members of the same family, joining groups that had already come here earlier. Another group of wife's families was the Coates family, came up here out of Warren County, Kentucky. They also joined other members of their family who had been here long before that. They came about 1880. Wife's Farrington family, that was spelled with an E back then. They spell it with an A now, F-E-E-R-R-I-N-G-T-O-N. That's how it was originally spelled. They came in the 1850s. Most of their children born in Ohio. They were married out in Pennsylvania. 3 sons enlisted together and fought in the Civil War. One was killed in one of the final battles of the war. He was the only one to actually have a child. One other brother was also married. Later on, the Tarr family settled in Monmouth. They had originally settled down in Fulton County around the 1850s and migrated this way also. And that's pretty much it for her family. There was 4 separate groups that all settled here. And
sounds like Ohio to here is kind of a trend. What do you think brought everybody from Ohio through Indiana to?
Mostly farming, availability of land. Some of the later groups came because of industry, notably the railroad. That's why my great-grandfather came to Monmouth from Iowa. His job was transferred from over in Iowa to Monmouth. He worked out of the roundhouse for the Iowa Central, which later became the Emmons St. L, Minneapolis and St. Louis, and later it was known as the Chicago Northwestern. And he retired at the end of the steam era didn't like the Diesels.
Are there any like particular anecdotes or particular stories that maybe you haven't touched on or want to touch on a little bit more detailed about different family members or different people who made the trip here that might be particularly interesting to?
Well, there's a sad story about the Hoy family. When the balance of the family came here from Michigan by train in 1885, my great-grandfather and his brother were already here and established in business by 1880, and their father and mother and their younger siblings came here. The youngest was George Jr., and he died within 20 hours of arriving in Monmouth and is buried out in Monmouth Cemetery.
What did he die from, do you know?
Oh, he's diabetic.
Oh, okay. What do you think, but you said you also left and came back as well. What brought you back, and what do you think brought some of these different people who had left and came back, and what do you think brought you back? What brought you back, and what do you think maybe brought back the other family members?
I came back for family and stayed because I was able to find work. Several times the work outlook has been bad around here. My wife and I have discussed moving away, and that hasn't happened yet. Although our daughters already moved away, my nephews have all moved away, unable to find work in the area.